Hey, and welcome to the Hieros Journey Podcast, Series 2, Episode 1. I hope you're all well wherever you are and have had a blessed day. So today is a deep one. So go get a cup of tea, a drink, some snacks, sit down, get comfortable, because I'm going to be talking about levels of consciousness and dream interpretation. I've got a lot of notes that I've made. So if you can hear pages rustling and there's a little pause now and again, please bear with me. I want to make sure I don't miss anything and that you guys get, the whole message that I have for you today. So I'm going to start by telling you the dream. I had this earlier on this year, 2020. Maybe in the summer sometime. So here it is. I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and below me is a pool of water. I'm afraid to jump, but I do. And I land in the water and go under. And it's dark and murky and it feels unknown and scary. But there's someone else in the water ahead of me. A friend, I think, who I follow, and I follow them to the surface. And when I come to the surface, I realize that we're in a cave. I can't see any exits or the sun or any light coming in. It could be nighttime, I don't know, but the cave is well lit, even though it is dark and gloomy, because it's a cave. But there's enough light for me to see everything right to the back of the cave. And I'm in a big body of water. And I can see at the back of the cave, like some rocks and these girls, some other people as well, but the girls is what I'm focused on. And they are kind of frolicking and laughing and chilling on these rocks. And there's other people, friends or people at least that I know around, but I feel like I don't know anyone. I can't put a face to any of these people. They're just people that I seem to know. Anyway, so I keep swimming behind this person, following them, trying to keep up with them. And the water's choppy, man, like the sea, the current's strong and I'm struggling. And there's moments where I can't stay afloat and I'm struggling to keep my head above water. But I'm like, right, I just got to swim a bit more. The rocks are there, like I can make it. I'm still a bit afraid. I'm still unsure. It's all a bit unfamiliar. And like I said, even the friends, I'm not even really sure of who they are and I don't really recognize them. But I make it to the back of the cave and I join these others and people are just chilling, blah, blah, blah. And I'm somewhat relieved, but I'm not completely at ease. And then one of the girls starts talking to me and approaching me, and the others are kind of laughing and talking and splashing and whatnot. And I'm not really sure what the girl is actually saying, but she's offering me sex. She's offering herself to me. Like she's opening her legs, she's telling me to come into her, she's bending over. She's not naked, she's wearing like a swimming costume, but obviously it's quite sexual, and I'm tempted, but I'm also hesitant. And then I realized that I've been hearing like a story playing in the cave, like a radio drama or radio play, and it sounds like it's on a tannoy. I can't see a tannoy or a speaker system, but it sounds like it's on a tannoy in the cave, and everyone's kind of listening to this story while we're talking and whatever. And the girl's still there offering to myself while I'm thinking about this. And then I'm just like, right, screw it. I start moving closer to her, like to go between her legs, thinking just screw it, I'm gonna do it. And as I approach her, I hear a woman's voice calling my name in like a stern, warning tone, like when a child goes to touch something that they've been told not to, like Liam. But the voice isn't one I recognize. It's like an older woman's voice, but it's not my mum, it's not any of my aunts or my family. But I can feel that the voice is like right and good. It may have called me 2 or 3 times. I'm not exactly sure how many, but every time it did, it was like the same kind of tone. Liam. But it seemed to be coming from like below or behind or beyond the cave. Like, it might sound a bit mad, but from like a different dimension within the cave, a deeper place, not in the room and not within inside me. Like within inside myself, I've got the thought of what is this voice and what is this girl and what is this place, and then there's this external voice from somewhere else I can't quite pinpoint, and no one else can seem to hear it either. And then the dream ended. So I woke up and I was at home in my bed, and a radio drama was playing on my phone. I listen to a lot of audio books, a lot of audio stories when I go to sleep, and so it's nothing new. But one was playing, and I realized straight away that the tannoy in the cave, the story that it had been playing was the radio drama that was playing in my actual room, in reality, if you like. And the audio had penetrated the dream world and integrated itself into the dream. And straight away, as I'm thinking about it, sorry, 1 second, my computer's just asking me to do updates. Let me just say remind me tomorrow, as I always do, and as we all know, tomorrow never comes. Anyway, so yeah, straight away I'm thinking, that was my conscious mind. My conscious reality was active, listening to the story, but at the same time as my subconscious mind was generating and interacting with this dream. And that in and of itself was kind of unique to this dream, because I can't remember a time where my conscious mind and my subconscious mind were both active and integrated at the same time. It's not uncommon for you to hear things that are happening in the real world within a dream. Like a doorbell might go, or a phone might ring, or a dog might be barking, or your parents or your girlfriend or your wife or whatever might call you. But the thing is, those things wake you out of your dream. When you're in the dream world and you're submerged in the subconscious, these external activations of the conscious mind wake you up out from the dream. So when the conscious mind is active, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself there, but it normally, that interaction normally ends, and these external stimuli to your conscious mind wake you up out of the dream. So there's some integration, but it's very little and it's very short-lived. So the fact that this entire dream was going on and my conscious mind was listening to the entire story the whole time I'm swimming and nearly drowning and having these interactions, this sound is going on. It's a very unique situation. Anyway, so that accounts for the tannoy. That's easily eliminated as to why that story was playing within the dream. So then I started thinking about the dream. I got a piece of pen and paper and I started writing it down. Like, where was I? What was that place? Why was I there? What was I supposed to be doing? Who were those people? And most importantly, who or what was that voice that was calling to me? I'd never heard it before. What was it? It woke me out of my dream. It stopped me in my tracks. And something I feel it's not necessarily important, but I think it's valid to note, is that dreams, interpretations of dreams, very deep and significant dreams, they're nothing new to me. And it's not a brag on like myself or my abilities or anything, but having profound or very deep or significant or kind of poignant dreams is not a new experience for me. It's not like I've never had a very deep, dream where I wondered or questioned the interpretation of before. I've had many. Since I was a child, I've been having them and learning to understand them and learning to interpret them from a very young age, like 9-10 years old. It's something that's come very naturally to me for one reason or another. So I point that out just to say that I'm not new to the dream world or having dreams that I wake up from and think, wow, what's happening here? So for this to be happening in a dream, especially at this age, I'm 34 going on 35, it definitely made me think, wow, what is happening here? This was something new. And I've had dreams that I felt have been more personally significant for me before and after this particular dream about the cave, but none have come close to fascinating me or puzzling me or even frightening me in the way that this one did. And it wasn't so much the dream itself or the context that fascinated so much. While it was intriguing and it was spooky, what fascinated me the most was what it revealed to me. And what I think it revealed to me, or I understand it revealed to me, was a third level of consciousness. I've already spoke about a first level of consciousness, the real world, your conscious mind. When you're awake, you're thinking, you're seeing, you're interpreting. And then the second level of consciousness, the subconscious, where your dreams take place. You analyze your thoughts, your things for the day, all gets like rounded up. You know what they say, like, oh, when you're sleeping, your subconscious mind works out all the crap, blah 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 blah, and you process blah blah blah. Okay, that's the second level of consciousness. But this dream introduced me to something I never experienced before, which I've, at this point, sitting there thinking about it, writing it down, was some third level of consciousness, a place in my mind, deep down, hidden, like hiding in the depths of my psyche. Like never before have I heard this voice. Never before have I experienced like a level within it, another level within a dream. And I've had lucid dreams where I've been able to control, or not like flying wherever I want to fly, go wherever I want to go, but I've been able to actively, consciously control choices that I'm making within a dream. So it's not like I haven't had lucid dreams or very vivid dreams before. This was something completely different. This was like a dream within a dream, if you like. I don't know if you've seen Inception, but the concept of that film is essentially that there's these people and they implant thoughts or ideas into the subconscious mind of an individual, so that they believe that any particular idea that's been implanted is their own. And in that film, they do that by putting the person into a dream state, then going into that dream, and then within that dream, creating another dream within it. Now, in this particular film, on this particular assignment that the film is focused on, they create another dream within that dream. It's like they go 3 levels deep. Maybe even before. I think it's 3 levels deep, and like it's like the deepest they've ever been. They go into the unconscious of this person. So they've gone beyond the subconscious now. They're going into the unconscious. That's like what I feel this was like. The voice was coming from my unconscious. Anyway, and like I said, I've experienced external sounds coming into dreams before. Yeah. So anyway, to help me kind of interpret what my subconscious mind was trying to say and what exactly was really going on here, and get a bit deeper than my current understanding, I pulled out one of my books by Sigmund Freud called The Interpretation of Dreams. And I've had this book for quite a while, but every time I read it, I really find it a struggle to extract the information I want. The book is not scientific, and while it's got a lot of great knowledge and insight into the psyche and interpretation of dreams, it's all anecdotal. And obviously we're dealing with dreams, so we're dealing with the way that people explain things, and so once you start explaining it, it's already coming through your filter of interpretation as an individual and what you can remember and so on and so forth. So of course it's going to be heavily reliant on what people tell him, but his reasoning if you ever get a chance to read The Interpretation of Dreams by Freud, you'll understand what I mean. Even if you can read an extract somewhere, you'll see that it reads more like a novel than a clinical or scientific text. Because it's like, oh, my client came in and he said this and I thought that, and he said this and I thought that, and I remember the other day he told me that he didn't like this person, and then I remember he had this drink. Oh, and I remember this time I thought, it's very like, it's very novel-esque, like he's telling stories. And what it means is, or what I find, is that I really have to immerse myself in the story and narratives of the patient's experiences and Freud's thoughts on them in order to extract the information or the interpretation of the dream. Another thing is, it makes me, this little side note, it makes me question the credibility of what Freud is saying. I'm not saying he's incredible, non-credible, but it does have a kind of all made up to fit feel about it, where I'm kind of like, is he making up these stories about these patients just to fit into the narrative of his hypotheses? So I'm not saying disregard the book, definitely use it, it's an invaluable resource. And Freud is heralded as like the king of psychology and interpretations of dreams and whatnot. However, luckily for me and for all of us, there's another really great psychologist whose analysis of dreams and the subconscious is not only sound and scientific, but to the point. And his name is Carl Jung, Carljung. It looks like Jung, but it's Jung. And what I've learned from just this one man's work, not only about my dreams but about myself, is like mind-blowing. So let's look a bit at that. Now, before I do that, just remember that I mentioned earlier, I've had dreams before and after this one that I thought were more significant, and it was when I was like researching and interpreting another dream, that the interpretation of this dream about the cave came to me. And this other dream I'd had required me to look into the significance and symbolism of animals in dreams. And I came across this website, which is a really great resource by a psychotherapist, I think, which I really recommend. It's called jungstop.com, jungstop.com. And in one of his articles on animal symbolism in dreams, I found that animals serve as symbols of self, and that the psyche is composed of two parts, the conscious and the unconscious. Remember I said I was skipping a little bit ahead of myself when I said about delving down into the unconscious, because I was still on the subconscious level. Well, I didn't really know about that until I read this. I knew there was a subconscious mind, and I had some idea of an unconscious, but I didn't understand that the whole self was comprised of the two parts. At least not to the degree that I understand it now anyway. So the conscious is represented by light in dreams, and that could be the sun or a bright source of light, a torch shining, various things. But darkness, it represents the unconscious, and in particular water, soil, and the underground represent the unconscious. And so as soon as I started reading about it, I understood straight away that the cave represented my unconscious thoughts. And not only was it a cave, but obviously there was water in the cave and it was dark. So I had no doubt in my mind that the cave represented my unconscious mind and thoughts. Now, with that in mind, what I understood with that is that what I understood from that was that I was exploring my unconscious mind. I was delving into the unconscious, the unknown. Let's So that kind of led me to another psychologist, another book called The Joseph Campbell Companion. It's a really good book by well, it's not necessarily by Joseph Campbell. It's like a compilation of his ideas, thoughts, quotes, blah, 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 blah. It's very good and very accessible. I recommend it as well. And in there, he says, where you stumble, there lies your treasure. The very cave you are afraid to enter turns out to be the source of what you are looking for. The damn thing in the cave that was so dreaded has become the center. So if we just think back to the previous podcasts and what I've been talking about, and the title of the podcast is The Hero's Journey. So hopefully you're familiar with the imagery of the hero's journey. If you're not, take a minute to familiarize yourself with it, and you'll see a point at around 3 o'clock on the cycle where the hero must cross the threshold. And this is where he has to, or she has to, begin to enter and go down into the unknown. So there'll be as the circle, you'll see 3 o'clock, and there'll be a line, and that is the line between the conscious and the unconscious, the above ground, the below ground. And at that 3 o'clock point, that's the point where you begin to go down into the cave, into the unknown. Some more detailed versions of the cycle will say, approach the innermost cave. And remember what I said there, what Joseph Campbell said, the very cave you are afraid to enter turns out to be the source of what you are looking for. And here we have the hero's journey at this 3 o'clock position on the cycle, showing the hero going down into the unknown and also entering into the innermost cave. And here's me in my dream, jumping off of a cliff, a very high point, down into the water below. And what I'm understanding is that represents me moving from that point above into the point below, into the unknown. So what is in the unknown? What is down there? What is there to be afraid of? Well, down in the unknown, you meet your shadow self. And that is the part of you that contains all the parts of yourself that you don't want to admit. And your conscious self doesn't identify with. The shadow is your unknown self. Not only do you meet your shadow self though, you also meet the wild bride and groom, God, like God and goddess experiences. Experience oneness and peace with your father and mother figures. You can find love down in the underworld. And also what we're going to get into is something called the sacred union or the sacred marriage. Now at first glance, if you remember back to the dream, it doesn't seem like I encountered any sacred marriage down there or any wild bride and groom. However, what I came to realize is that the sacred marriage is not a marriage between a person that you meet down there who's meant to be your love for life or whatever. That's not what it means. What it means is that there's a marriage between the conscious and the unconscious, a meeting, a union between the conscious and the unconscious. Those two becoming one. The descent into the unknown depths to find your other half. That's what it represents. You descending down into the unknown to find your other half of yourself, to unify your conscious and unconscious, a union between two realms, two opposites, mortal and divine. Mortal being your natural conscious experience of the world, going down in and meeting your unknown spiritual side, the divine side, masculine and feminine, all of that. And that union is known as the Hieros GAMOS. Some people might say the Hieros GAMOS, which in Greek means sacred marriage. What was I going to say? So, this dream, now I'm starting to realize now, this dream was the meeting of my conscious and unconscious. Two parts of me joining together, finding each other. Me diving down into the unknown to find the parts of me that I'm either too afraid to embrace, have been too afraid to embrace, didn't know I had, that I had hidden. Parts of me that I need to unify in order to become the best version of myself, a complete self. Remember that I said I could hear the radio drama playing in the background, but it didn't wake me. That was my conscious and the subconscious, my conscious and the subconscious working in union, meeting in one spot. My conscious mind, my conscious reality, that experience coming down into the subconscious and unifying and meeting and saying, okay, I'm going to play this radio story, blah, 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 blah. And the subconscious saying, yeah, that's cool, man, because we're good. You're not going to wake me out of this dream or wake him up, because we're not working against each other anymore. We're not opposite sides. We're one now. Does that make sense? There's a union there. So looking again at the hero's journey cycle, you can see that after the descent, there's a period of challenges and temptations. And we're just going to look at what those were represented by in the dream. So at the beginning of the dream, I was at the top of a cliff, afraid to jump. Fear of diving down into the unknown. That's a challenge there. Once I did get down into the water, the current was strong. It was choppy. I couldn't really see. It was dark. I had to follow someone. I had to kind of overcome my fear of obviously drowning, getting lost, and the unknown. Those are challenges there. Yeah, obviously I had to swim to the rocks, and then when I got there were these girls, these women, these temptations. One thing I also need to point out real quick is that when you look at the point where the hero descends down into the unknown at 3 o'clock, there's also, depending on what version of the hero's journey you have or looking at and how detailed it is, you will see that along that line where the challenges and temptations are, it will say things like friend, mentor. Remember I said I had to follow someone in the water to get to the rocks and that, but I weren't really sure if they were a friend or what. I just knew that I could follow them. I believe that represents the mentor, because a mentor, they're not necessarily your friend, they're just like a guide, aren't they? Yeah. So I believe that person was a mentor. I don't even think I saw their face in the dream. I just kind of saw their feet kicking and I was just following them. So anyway, we had these girls at the back of the cave, temptations, and what I believe these represent are distractions seeking to take you off your focus, off the journey, your goal, your prize. And what I came to understand is, and I may bring it up again later as I go through the notes, but it's on my mind now, is that all these distractions, they're not necessarily the girls don't represent actual women in real life. What they represent are the things that you allow to distract you, the things that you have within you that will cause you to stumble, the things that you have within you that will take you off your course. Yeah, they may manifest themselves as, or they may manifest themselves through other people, but ultimately they're only going to throw you off your course if you allow them, if you allow yourself to be distracted. And within the dream, I believe that these girls or these women were like a type of archetypal nymph, seductresses. If you look up the story of Hieros and the nymphs, it's a very famous painting. I think it's called Hieros, seduced and abducted by the nymphs, I think. And it's a young guy, Hieros. I think he was like a protege of Hercules. They may have even have been lovers, which is another completely different story to explore. But he gets drawn in by the nymphs, and the nymphs are in the water. The nymphs are water creatures. They're normally nude, beautiful. So anyway, they draw him in, and I think they take him under the water, or they carry him off, presumably to his death, and he's never seen again. You've got similar symbols in other mythology, like the nymphs as well, like the sirens, who are also seductresses. They draw sailors in with their beauty and songs, and they draw them where? They draw them onto the rocks, so their ships would wreck and the whole crew would go down and they'd die and drown. A famous example of a hero that came up against these sirens was Odysseus in the Odyssey, and I knew that story, or I've known that story for a long time, since I was maybe 10 again, or maybe possibly younger than 10, before secondary school, that's for sure. But I remember he had his men tie him to the mast of the ship, and he made the rest of them put wax in their ears. And he told them, look, I need to hear the voice of the sirens. No matter what you do, no matter how much I plead, no matter how much I beg, do not cut me free. I need to hear the voice of the sirens. And I could never understand as a child why he did that. Why didn't he just block his ears like the rest of the crew and sail past? But I understand that the hero has to face and endure and overcome the trials and tests in order to be the hero. It's not ignoring the problems, ignoring the trials and tests doesn't give you the experience and skills and obviously qualifications that you need to become the hero. Like, you have to go through the processes. You can't just put cotton in your ear or wax or whatever and ignore it and whatnot. That's not the hero's journey. That's a little bit of a side note. But that's something interesting about the Odyssey and Odysseus. Anyway, these distractions, they just seek to knock us off course. And ultimately, these distractions, they just destroy you. You lose purpose, you lose your way, you lose your guide, sometimes you just kind of get lost in the sauce. But they are, however, like I said, they're part of us. They're part of our being. And we must know them and face them and resist them in order to overcome. Hence why I talked about Odysseus and what he done there. Finally, we come to the last part. The part that fascinated me the most, the voice of the unknown woman. And if we look back again at the hero's journey cycle, I know I'm referring to it a lot, but this is the Hero's Journey podcast, so you should expect to hear it mentioned quite frequently. If we look back, we see, again, depending on what one you're looking at, another helper is met at the end of, or like the 6 o'clock point, the midsection of the hero's journey cycle. And so at around 6 o'clock, you'll see another part that says a helper again. And some versions may also show meeting with the goddess. It might say that. Now, I believe the voice that I heard was that goddess, was that help. And what that goddess or that help is known as, or I understand it from my dream, was my anima. A-N-I-M-A, anima. And Carl Jung, again, he defined the anima as the unconscious feminine side of a man, the feminine half of a man that is embedded into him. And women have a side too. They have an unconscious side, which is male and is known as the animus. A-N-I-M-U-S. So men have an unconscious feminine side, anima. Women have an unconscious male side, animus. So I believe that this voice was my anima. And there are 4 stages of development that make the anima and are represented by 4 female archetypes. Eve is stage 1, and Eve is the mother. So your voice, the voice of your mother, your how much more explanation does that need? And then stage 2 is Helen of Troy, and she represents beauty, sexual relations. So your development as a man, these are your experiences of feminine energy, essentially. So first you experienced your mother, then Helen of Troy is the beauty, the sexual attraction of women. Then stage 3 is Mary, mother of Christ, interestingly, and she represents the birth of spiritual and religious capacity. So at this stage, your experience of women is gonna be in some spiritual capacity, understanding the importance of women on your spiritual developmental journey. And then stage 4 is Sophia, also known as wisdom. And at this point, a man's anima becomes a guide. Wisdom, this feminine energy, this feminine unknown has evolved and developed into a wise knowing guide, and it's a guide to the inner life, and is a mediator between the conscious and the unconscious, feeding the conscious with like information and intuition. You ever heard of the expression women's intuition? Feeding the conscious mind with the contents of the unconscious, and she cooperates in the search for meaning. And they say that this 4th stage of the anima becomes, in a man, his creative muse, in his art, if you like. I believe that the voice I heard was my anima at stage 4. I've experienced women on all stages, 1, 2, and 3, and I believe that as a result, I've entered, or I'm entering into, or my anima, or my relationship with my anima is entering into this 4th stage where the wisdom is coming through. My understanding of what is down in the unconscious is beginning to come through. In the dream, my anima was a guide. She was calling me to leave the distractions behind and remain focused on the mission. I believe that my anima is the wild bride that I mentioned way back at the beginning. Remember I said you meet the wild bride and groom, and the wild groom is me. And together, this union of my masculine conscious, because I'm a male, when I'm awake, my conscious mind is masculine. And so the union of my masculine consciousness and my feminine unconscious is that sacred marriage that I mentioned before. Me going down into the depths to find and unite with this other half of myself, in order to give birth to my complete self. So my light and my dark, my conscious, unconscious, known, unknown, masculine, feminine, meeting, having that union and joining together. There's a strong symbolism of birth and rebirth. If you again look at the hero's journey cycle at the very bottom, the 6 o'clock area, again, it's the rebirth part of the cycle. And the cave itself, it is integral to that symbolism as well, because not only does it represent the inner and unknown, but it also represents the womb, deep dark water, the external consciousness, that external male energy penetrating, entering into the unknown, into the darkness, is like the sperm seeking its way through the darkness, through the water, swimming, seeking its counterpart that is waiting within the depths. That feminine energy, that egg, is waiting there in the depths. It's hidden. It's like it's right deep within, in the womb, the womb of the cave. Again, the sperm meeting the egg is another sacred union. And it produces life and gives birth to a complete, entity. It's mad how there's like so many comparisons, symbols and likenesses in nature and within our psyches, and they're all intertwined and confirm each other on so many different levels. It's mad. So I've learned, I believe, that sacred union is my part, the parts of me coming together, finding that the parts of me that are hidden, are I've ignored or have not understood or been afraid of, they're calling to me and I'm seeking them. So I think I've covered every part of the dream now. But what does it all really mean? We've got all the symbolism. What does it really mean for me? And obviously you as a listener, because you as a listener, it may not mean much because it's my dream. So for me, the dreamer, I understand what all of the elements of the dream are and what they represent and how they're relevant to my life. But most importantly for me, like, the dream has given me insight into where I'm at in my personal psychological development. The development of myself, and it also lets me know where I'm at in terms of like my progress on this hero's journey. In addition to that, I've also learned that there's a third layer to my consciousness beyond the subconscious, that I've got to continue to connect with. I don't believe that union that I talked about, the union of my conscious and unconscious, I don't think that union and that marriage is complete. I don't think it's happened yet. I think rather the two have now met and are no longer unaware of each other. And that's opened the door for further exploration, development and interaction in order to build that relationship to the point where they can be married, that sacred marriage can happen. And those two parts of me can actually fully join and become one, and that the conscious and unconscious, known, unknown, dark, light, masculine, feminine, all of that within me as one person can fully be realized. Because as I sit here now, I'm still talking about the unconscious as if it was something else, as if it's a part of me that only existed in this particular dream, or it's not, I'm not sitting here feeling or thinking like, I'm integrated with it. I still feel like my conscious mind is the dominant one. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up there. I hope this has been insightful and interesting. Please leave me a comment if you're on a platform where you can comment. Like and share if you think it will help anybody, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast. If you can, please subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/THJP. thanks for listening. Also, if you would like to tell me about any of your dreams, you just hit me up, send me a message, and I'd like to try and work with you and help you understand your dreams and the interpretation of them a bit better as well. So just let me know, man, and I'll like to try something with you guys. Until then, thank you once again for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next podcast.